December 8th, 2025. The White House promises struggling farmers $12 billion in rescue checks, funded, they claim, by tariffs collected from China. But behind that promise lies a hidden reality. The money comes straight from taxpayers, not from foreign rivals. The lifeline may be a band-aid over catastrophic wounds in United States agriculture. So, where did the cash really go? And who stands to lose everything as the trade war drags on? The White House unveiled the $12 billion Farmer Bridge Assistance Program at a December roundtable, promising a lifeline to producers battered by years of trade turmoil and rising costs. President Trump declared the aid a direct answer to lost markets, with Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins at his side. The plan divides $11 billion for row crops, soybeans, corn, and wheat, and $1 billion for specialty crops and sugar, all to be administered by the Farm Service Agency. Payments are scheduled to begin by February 28th, 2026, with notifications going out to eligible farmers in January. The administration pledged that no single farmer or legal entity could receive more than $155,000, a cap reminiscent of earlier bailouts, though not yet detailed in official USDA guidance. This cap is designed, at least in theory, to steer funds towards smaller operations and to prevent the largest players from capturing a disproportionate share. Farmers must have their acreage and conservation compliance forms on file by December 19, 2025, to qualify. Secretary Rollins described the checks as a bridge, not a permanent fix. She told reporters that the plan ensures farmers can plan for the next crop year, and that for many it is the piece of paper they need to keep their lender at bay. The administration insists the money will help producers cover loans and input costs, giving them enough liquidity to plant in 2026. Officials repeatedly claim the funds come from tariffs collected on Chinese goods. But as the details circulate, serious questions linger about how the payments will really be funded, and whether the promised relief can reach those most in need before the next planting season begins. Despite repeated claims from the White House that tariff revenue funds the $12 billion farmer bailout, the actual money trail leads somewhere else entirely. The payments are not carved out of a special tariff fund or set aside from customs receipts on Chinese goods. Instead, the program draws on the Commodity Credit Corporation, CCC, a government entity with a standing line of credit of $30 billion at the U.S. Treasury. The CCC charter allows it to borrow directly from general taxpayer funds, not from a pool of tariff money. That means this is borrowing from general funds, not a dedicated tariff account. Treasury data confirms that tariffs collected between 2018 and 2025 totaled between $80 and $100 billion, far short of the trillions touted in presidential speeches. These tariffs are import taxes, paid by American businesses when goods cross the border. The revenue flows into the Treasury General Fund, where it is mixed with other federal receipts. There is no earmark, no dedicated transfer, and no accounting ledger showing that $1 from tariffs is matched to $1 paid to farmers. When the USDA initiates a bailout, it taps the CCC borrowing authority, essentially writing an IOU to the Treasury. The money is then distributed to eligible farmers through the Farm Service Agency, with the cost ultimately borne by taxpayers. This mechanism has been used before, most notably during the 2018 and 2019 market facilitation programs. No public USDA or Treasury record links tariff collections to these bailouts. Efforts to obtain internal ledgers or reconciliation files through public records requests have so far come up empty, leaving only a paper trail of general fund borrowing and political rhetoric. The administration narrative that tariffs pay for bailouts collapses under the weight of basic fiscal reality. Richard Oswald walks his Missouri fields, counting every dollar as the numbers no longer add up. 4 years of low crop prices and shrinking markets have left farms like his teetering at the edge. The bridge payment of $12 billion offers a lifeline on paper, but the reality is more complicated. Seed costs are up 18% since 2022. Fertilizer prices have jumped by as much as 25%. And every load of fuel or equipment part comes with a new surcharge. Dealers across the Midwest report equipment sales down by nearly a fifth, with layoffs rippling through small towns that depend on farm spending. Oswald's lender now demands proof of bailout eligibility before extending another loan. For many, that piece of paper promised by Secretary Rollins is the only thing keeping the doors open until spring. But the bills keep coming, and the relief, if it arrives, will mostly pay off old debts. The stress is everywhere, on Main Street, in the machinery shed, around kitchen tables where families weigh whether this season will be their last. In 2018, the first round of farm bailouts promised relief, but delivered something else entirely. Audit data from that period revealed a familiar pattern. The top 1% of recipients, mostly large-scale operators, walked away with roughly a quarter of the total funds. The mechanism was subtle but effective. Payment caps, set from $125,000 to $155,000 per legal entity, were easily sidestepped. Large farms registered multiple limited liability companies, or partnerships, each qualifying as a separate legal entity on paper, even if the same families or corporations controlled them. The Farm Service Agency, tasked with distributing billions, had no practical way to aggregate ownership across these layers. As a result, one operation could collect checks under a dozen different business names, multiplying their take far beyond the intended limit. Independent reviews flagged this loophole, but the rules remained unchanged. While the program's language emphasized help for small and mid-sized farms, the structure allowed the largest players to capture the lion's share. The official intent clashed with the on-the-ground outcome, a system where legal scale and savvy legal work determined who benefited most, not who needed help the most. China's soybean commitments, touted by the administration as a sign of trade war progress, have fallen far short of the headlines. While officials referenced new agreements and hinted at major purchases, export logs tell a different story. By late December, confirmed United States soybean shipments to China hovered around 4 million metric tons for the quarter, far from the 12 million metric tons the White House suggested would be delivered by January. Even the most generous projections from the USDA fall short of any public promise, and no binding order from the Chinese government has surfaced. Secretary Rollins, pressed by reporters, admitted there is still a significant gap to close. On the ground, farmers see the numbers for what they are, a fraction of what is needed to restore lost markets. The timing of these announcements lines up with the 2026 primary calendar, hitting swing states like Iowa and Wisconsin just as campaign season heats up. The administration's public optimism stands in stark contrast with the export data and the lived reality of producers. For every press release touting progress, there is a shipment ledger showing the United States losing ground to Brazil and Argentina. The credibility gap between political promises and actual trade flows grows wider, leaving farmers and rural communities caught in the middle, waiting for relief that may never arrive. Policy experts point to a set of reforms that could move American agriculture beyond endless bailouts and toward real stability. The first step is finalizing renewable volume obligations under the Renewable Fuel Standard. These renewable volume obligations determine how much biofuel like corn-based ethanol must be blended into the nation's fuel supply each year. The Environmental Protection Agency's 2026 proposal set a record 24 billion gallons, including 15 billion from conventional ethanol, but it missed its legal deadline last November. Until these rules are finalized, corn demand and prices remain stuck in limbo, leaving farmers exposed to every trade shock. The 45Z tax credit is another tool with immediate impact. By rewarding clean fuel production, it gives ethanol plants and soybean processors a financial boost, strengthening local crop prices and supporting rural jobs. Industry groups estimate that a fully implemented 45Z tax credit could lift corn and soybean margins by up to 20% over the next 2 years. Preventing future bailout abuse requires strict safeguards against capture. Auditable payment ledgers, enforcement of single taxpayer identification, and public reporting of recipients would close the loopholes that let large operations collect millions through shell entities. Market access program credits, when fully funded, help rebuild lost export markets and diversify buyers beyond China. Experts argue these solutions, rooted in policy, not politics, offer a path to long-term resilience for family farms. Today, United States farm bankruptcies remain stubbornly high as Brazil and Argentina solidify their hold on global markets. Temporary bailouts can't reverse permanent losses. Until policy shifts create real, lasting demand for American crops, rural communities face decline, not just in profit, but in purpose. What changes would you demand?